Good afternoon. Bonjour. So I'm here to talk to you about a film and a movement called Common Ground. But more important than that, I'm here to talk to you about a substance. You know, it's interesting when we look at our world right now, there's so much division, so much tension in our world. But the thing that binds us together is this universal substance, this thing that is universal to every single one of us, brings us food. It is ultimately what determines whether or not the climate is balanced or not. And we call that thing simply soil. I've spent the last 10 years of my life with over 1,000 people around the world making a new narrative about soil. But what's interesting about this narrative, this soil narrative, is in spite of the differences in our world, the economic and political differences, the reality is, ultimately, if we save the soil, we advance all of these issues: climate, food, water, farming, health, and so many more. But it's not something we talk about a lot, and it's not something we think about a lot, which is why I'm here. Each year, we emit precipitously more CO2, in spite of 29 COP meetings, in spite of so much effort around green energy, batteries, solar, wind. These aren't bad ideas, right? But none of them can remove 1 ton of carbon from the atmosphere. We could put solar panels on every building in the world, electrify every vehicle, and yet we'd still have 950 gigatons of carbon. In fact, according to the International Energy Agency, we will emit more precipitously each year until 2050. So are we really thinking in terms of solutions? I'm going to make some bold statements that people will probably disagree with. I believe net zero is achievable within 10 years, within a decade, but not the way that we're approaching it today. I'm going to make another bold statement, and that is soil is the solution. We have, after 10 years in this movement, growing a mountain of data that shows that soil can sequester the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now, it's not as simple as just soil, of course. There's more to it. But a big part of it is tall grasses. A lot of people miss the forest for the trees when we talk about how do we regenerate deserts? How do we regenerate the planet? How do we balance the climate? 2/3 of the planet cannot sustain tree cover at this point. 2/3 of the arable land, because there's not enough rainfall. But it can sustain tall grasses. And tall grasses act as a carbon and water pump. They pull carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, they pull water from the atmosphere, and they pump it into the soil. And the way we balance the climate, yes, carbon is a big part of it, but water. If we don't move water into the soil profile, we have no way to cool the air above the land. Carbon dioxide is an insulating gas. It's not the source of heat. Water moves heat. Water transfers energy. So if we want to cool the planet, we start with tall grasses, and we pump water and carbon dioxide into the ground. And if we look at the parts of the world on which we can do that, we're talking about a vast area of land. We have taken the arable land on planet Earth, and we've cut it in half. And according to the United Nations, we're going to cut it in half again by 2050 if we continue farming the way we're farming. Does that make sense? Cut the arable land in half, double the population. This is the formula for collapse. But I suggest there's a different formula, a formula for regeneration. And that's what's encapsulated in these 3 films, this journey, this narrative journey that myself, my filmmaking partner, Rebecca, and these thousands of people have taken, right? And so what does that look like? On the outside, it's pretty simple. Regeneration, or regenerative agriculture, focuses on 6 simple principles. Why is a filmmaker talking about all these things? What's the methodology for change? What do we use to actually move people, move institutions, move society, move large portions of government? I use film because I'm very interested in mass social movements, how people take a narrative and how they act on that narrative. And now these films are reaching tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of people. And we're seeing massive change. Billions of dollars were put into regenerative agriculture after Kiss the Ground came out. Billions. And so the formula is simple. Watch, join, act. And the act is one of pressure. It's one of consumer demand, so bottom up, and it's one of company and government interest, right? So bottom up, top down. And that's where the power is. It's not a one spoke in a wheel movement. What regeneration has become is this multi-spoked movement, and you're going to hear for some incredible people after I'm done talking who are actually doing regeneration in different ways. But this is how we do it on a mass scale. And you go, well, great, Josh. You're making movies. That's interesting. But is this theory of change working? When we first released Kiss the Ground in 2020, Netflix first took it out. How many people in here have seen Kiss the Ground? Thank you very much. Appreciate that. The other half of you, watch it on Amazon Prime. Now, when we released Kiss the Ground, there were less than 5 million acres of certified organic land in the US. And it happened to release during COVID. So people were stuck at home and they're like, well, I'm done watching Tiger King. What is this thing with Woody Harrelson and carrots? I guess I'll watch that, right? Kiss the Ground was one of the most successful environmental documentaries Netflix ever had. But what was interesting is the amount of land that began to get committed into regeneration, just in the US. That's where we tracked it. We went from 5 million acres to 55 million acres in 5 years. That's astounding. That's more land than the organic movement was able to put into organic agriculture in 50 years. So it shows the demand, it shows the interest, it shows people watching, joining, and acting. Now, that equates to about 5% of US CO2 emissions. It is, in effect, the largest carbon capture effort ever undertaken. Now, the goal of Common Ground, the second film in the series, is 100 million acres. And again, we're just talking about North America at this point. Why 100 million acres? 100 million acres is over 10% of our ag. Social scientists tell us that 10% is a tipping point. So once that's achieved, that's 1 out of every 10 acres farmed, 1 out of every 10 calories consumed, 1 out of every 10 conversations a farmer or a banker that works with a farmer or somebody who makes a piece of equipment for food is. You go, well, how important is that? Well, food in North America is a $1 trillion a year industry. So it's only as important as moving $100 billion. This number we're on track to achieve, and we will achieve that by 2027. This won't be land that is fully transitioned, but it is land that is committed, it is land that farmers and ranchers are working on, and it is moving into regeneration. What about the third film? Again, watch, join, act. What is the action we want? We want to convert the deserts of the world back into lush ecosystems. There's about 9 billion acres, 5 billion hectares globally of arable land. What if we took 10% of that and we put it into regeneration? We converted that vast Saharification of Africa. And believe it or not, you have desertification in Europe as well. What if we convert that back into functioning ecosystems that also provide food, fiber, feed, and climatic balance? Now we've got 10% of global agriculture. What does that look like? About 10% of global CO2 emissions. The goal, of course, is 100%. 100% of the arable land that human beings touch. And by the way, land, agriculture, food, that is the #1 way that we affect ecosystems as human beings. We have, in fact, re-engineered the surface of planet Earth just by eating. So when we think, well, I'm gonna eat something that doesn't harm, it doesn't work like that. You can eat something that regenerates, or you cannot. Those are the choices, right? And so really what we're looking at is a mass movement from the ground up and the top down. Governments, corporations, and NGOs coming together in this vast interplay of moving land into regeneration. And having been now to 10 countries, filming the 3rd film, I can tell you that the groundswell of this movement is absolutely growing exponentially. We're literally cataloging deserts being turned back into green ecosystems. So my call to action to you all is very simple. Common Ground Kiss the Ground are now both streaming on Amazon Prime. Watch the films, please. Share them with your friends and family. Every single time one of those films is watched, it is a vote for a greener, more regenerative future. Together, we can absolutely regenerate this planet. We can balance the climate, we can achieve net zero, and we can do it in under a decade. Thank you for being my partner in that mission. Have a great day.